Hey, what is up, you guys? Welcome to Word First Radio, the podcast brought to you by Word First Ministries. I am your host, Jacob O'Neill, and as always, I'm joined by my friends Cameron and Bailey.
Hey.
And today, we have my friend Endre back in the studio.
Morna.
How are you feeling, man?
I'm doing good.
It's been a while since the last time we had you
been
on.
some weeks, yeah.
Okay, right on.
Been doing a lot of important studies of not doing much.
Okay, right. Wonderful. Bailey, how would you pray us in, man?
Yeah, of course. God, thank you just for the opportunity we have today to speak with our friend Endre. And yeah, we just devote this time to you and pray that you would use it to challenge us and teach us and humble us. So Lord, we spend this time in your name. Amen.
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 All right, brother. Well, hey, so last time we had you on, we talked about, you gave us a lot of useful information, by the way, about Norwegian culture and the kind of like Christian identity that's still baked into Norwegian culture, talking about confirmations and all that. But we did get to talk a little bit about your worldview. You shared with us that you are an atheist, basically a materialist, is what you said.
Yeah, it's like I don't have like a description, like it's whatever. It's not something I think much about, but if you're going to fit me like some sort of physical naturalism or something like that.
Okay,
yeah.
For sure. You shared with some of your thoughts about the Bible as well. And so one of the things that we didn't get to, one of the kind of the next questions on the survey was, where do you find like meaning in life? So this is a huge conversation that people have been talking about since there have been people. So, I guess I'll just kind of throw that on the table. Endre, you as an atheist, as someone who kind of leans more on like the physicalist, naturalist kind of side, where do you find meaning in life? What is the meaning of life?
Yeah, it's like the very short answer is just like an internal process where I use my brain, I do things I like, and that's the short story of it. Yeah. But like the long story is like we talked earlier about like we also talked when I talked to you on Monday about like the Schopenhauer about when like the first really question about the meaning of life came, but because like in the past, like for example you have the Aristoteles like thing, they didn't talk about the meaning like Aristotle and philosophy. They also talk kind of like that, but it was like what is the good life. And then also like you have also in like other Christian theology or if it's like or Islam or something like that, they often like they don't necessarily have like the open question about what is the meaning of life. It's more like guidance kind of things. And then it's like it's just like an interesting thing, like how I see it. It's like a modern phenomena kind of about like it's not like because sometimes you don't even necessarily have to even think about the meaning of life. You just do things and you just enjoy life. And it's just like part of like, a new thing that we have started to think about because we now actually can think about it more because it's like to the part of like this cultural evolution because we can like now make statements about things because you need words to first find out the things that this doesn't make much sense.
Well, you need words to describe the things that you're finding out, right? It would be kind of awful if all we had was just, some people do, it's pretty sad, but just our brains of like, oh, I'm making all these amazing observations in the world and I can't share them with other people. So you need words for that. Yeah.
And so to go like in depth about like what my meaningful life is, it's like we can also maybe talk about the meaning of life as like a Christian also, how I see this like will not be like a meaningful life, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like for me, like you have, for example, like you have in my perspective, it's like if you're like a Christian, then like your meaningful life is like worshiping God, right? Or
we'll get to that. We'll have Cameron in a moment explain explain the meaning of life from a Christian perspective. But that's a definitely part of it. Yeah.
But it's more like we are like in just like we are into the like as I think maybe I said last time, we were like to the ants of like God, like some like some people have ant farms.
Yes.
And like we are like the meaning of life is just like I don't know, pleasuring God kind of. Just like so you have like a ant person is like watching the ant farm and like, oh cool, the ants are doing this thing. But I think it's like more like when you don't have this like God or something else, some higher power or whatever it should be like. But now we just have the or internal like or like because it's like my meaning of life is subjective. Because some people are saying like when you have like subjective meaning, you have like where do you even can get your meaning from? But it's like I do things I like, and that's just the end of the story, and like I find it's also like more like beautiful at the same time when you're creating your own path in life, if that makes sense. I don't know how much I can go into it right now.
No,
not to
that's
talk
already
too much. Yeah.
No, that's good. That already just alone gives us a ton to talk about. But so kind of just basically like I don't really think about it. I do the things that I like because I like them, and it's basically just all subjective.
Yeah.
And that's what you find beautiful about it is the subjectivity. Okay. Yeah. No, really interesting. Cameron, do you mind like any thoughts you have on that, or if you don't mind sharing, like where would a Christian
and your perspectives also like what do you find meaning also?
Yeah, sure. I have you might imagine I have a lot to say, and I don't know if any of it is very good. I guess, but it's a lot of volume.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you if it's good.
It's a lot of words, but you sort of can't overstate the importance of the question, what is the meaning of life? And it's such a cliche sort of question that almost no one answers it the same way. If you ask 5 people what's the meaning of life, it's not just that they have 5 interpretations of the answer, it's that they have 5 interpretations of the question. What does that mean? So it's in the one sense it's a difficult thing to even have a constructive conversation about. But as I consider it, it's something like, I'll try and explain it this way. Life is suffering and pain, and I know that more suffering and pain are coming tomorrow. So I'm confronted with the question, why would I choose to live another day if I know that there is the potential, and not just potential, in fact, by all my reason tells me there's a guarantee of suffering and pain coming tomorrow. Why would I want to continue to participate in existence? And that's what some of the existentialists were dealing with sort of in the early 20th century is like, how do we deal with that? If life is absurd and none of it means anything, so the meaning of life, there is no meaning. It's absurd. It doesn't mean anything. And if you read Camus has a very brief essay on the myth of Sisyphus. Have you read that, Endre?
I have read. I usually read like summaries of things.
Yeah,
because I understand it at least.
Yeah, so I'll give you a very short summary. But even Camus' paper on it is really short. But basically, what he does is he talks about the myth of this Greek character called Sisyphus. And Sisyphus, he's done something bad, and his punishment is he has to roll a rock up a hill, and then let it go and chase it back down the hill and roll it back up the hill for all eternity. And Camus thinks that this is relevantly similar to human existence. He goes, look, that's our lives. And it's not eternity, but that's what we're doing for as long as we continue to exist, is our lives are just like Sisyphus rolling a rock up a hill, only for it to roll back down again, for us to chase it and roll it back up the hill. Because when our life is over, that's all the difference. That's all the difference we will have made in the universe, right? You could, in a certain sense, if there's no God, if we're looking at you don't even have to remove God from existence, but if you're looking at the universe in purely physical terms, you can explain not just any individual life, but all of human history as a complex chemical reaction that in an astronomical time frame is very, very short and doesn't matter to the universe at all. So when I consider that question, then what is the meaning of my life? So you can say, what is the purpose of humanity, purpose of human life? What's the purpose of the universe, etc. But when I consider what's the meaning of life, what am I supposed to do? Given that a physical description of the universe, when it ends in heat death, in all things considered, not that long, will it have made a difference? Will my life have made a difference? And I think the answer in physical terms is no, it doesn't. So you can do I think maybe, Endre, you've come to the similar conclusion as Albert Camus. What he says is, okay, so how does Sisyphus live? Well, I don't want to kill myself. I would rather push the rock up the hill and whistle while I work.
Yeah.
And make it as personally meaningful as I can, and try and make it as enjoyable as I can. Recognize, confront the stark reality that this is meaningless and absurd. And knowing that I'm going to whistle, I'm going to skip, I'm going to have the best time that I can have while I'm doing this thing until I drop dead, knowing that that was meaningless, because that's preferable to killing myself.
Because it was like either Sartre or Camus that was like talking about like do whatever you want to do as long as you not do what is making you not kill yourself or something like that.
Yeah, that was
That's
Camus. That is Camus. I think Sartre was a little bit. I don't know if I said that right.
He had seen a little. I don't remember exactly, but they were very similar stuff, but a little bit different also.
Yeah, they ran in the same crowds. So all that is preamble. All of that is like the foundation of, okay, so now what's the meaning of life?
Well, I actually want to kind of just like chase this rabbit a little bit. So you were kind of like expanding, like he's kind of saying like, Endre, that's what I'm interpreting you saying. It's like you're saying what like Camus said, we're like, okay, we whistle while we work as we do that. Like, so I guess my question for you is like, is that enough? Like, is that it? Do you see life that way of like I'm pushing the rock up the hill and it's rolling down, and I know this is absurd and meaningless. The way I kind of look at that is like, okay, I'm gonna pretend this is meaningful because it makes it more enjoyable. Do you kind of see it that way, or?
I see it like, of course, it's a little bit different from like pushing a rock every day. Yeah, it's a little bit.
We have music and chocolates.
It's a fun rock.
But no, it's just mostly just like about to the enjoy the ride as long as it lasts, because you only have this time, and like you were like because as I see it's like it's also like. When you have like, for example, like if you just like assume this context that there's no afterlife or anything like that, we just have this moment right here now, and then it's just like we are like been like for me personally, like it's just like a very fun thing to experience. This like 8 years or something I get, and just like do the best of it as I can, and like one day will like all my memories will be gone, but it's like I enjoyed it up to the moment I was dead, and then it's just. Over and I will be forgetting, and even like when you get to the sun will just encapsulate to the earth, and even that then absolutely everything will be gone from this at least this physical world at least. So then it's like but it's just like I know it's just like it's just about having fun minimum when you are at it, because you only have this opportunity, and then because then it's like my criticism towards like think like not just Christianity but like other things also, because it was like this I don't know if you saw this like this shooting for some years ago at a church. There was like some mass shooting at a church, and then like these people were saying like then these people were saying like oh, it doesn't matter anywhere, they just go to heaven, and like we should don't bother about things that happen here. And then it's like I also saw like another thing where like people were like they were very eager to the day they die, because then they can like go to God or something. So they're very like quick to want to escape this world. But I don't say this is like representative of you guys, but I've seen like some of this, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, sure. No, absolutely. No, we've seen that too. Yeah. So Cameron, after laying that out and kind of like hearing Endre's perspective, what would you see like, especially versus the Christian view, like why that kind of view of reality or the meaning of life is problematic? That whistling while I work, and like, why is that not enough?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to say. Yeah. So again, as per usual, I think there's a lot to say, because Endre's right that like what is the meaning of life is kind of a modern way of framing the question. So you have starting with Aristotle at least, they're asking what is the good life. Which is how do I live life well? Which is the question you confronted. I've got 80 years, hopefully, maybe. And how do I make the best of it, whatever it is? If I cease to exist and I don't continue to exist. I have no memory. Eventually, everyone I've ever known will all be dead. There will be no memory of me. What do I do with these 80 years? Well, I do the things that make that make sense to do, the things that I enjoy rather than the ones that do the things that bring me pleasure and satisfaction rather than things that bring me pain and suffering.
And another thing also, like, it's not just in my world also, it's not just about like joy and stuff like that. It's also about like not necessarily pain, but like also like hardship. Like for example, like I do like programming now, and like it's like very painful to do it because but it's like when you do this programming, you will get like you could do some very cool statistical analysis and stuff like that. But so it's not just about the pursuit of like joy and happiness. In my world, we also
Well, but I think you'd have to, if you're going to be consistent. So I understand what you're saying, but I think if you're going to be consistent, you have to be able to reduce any instance of pain and suffering into some expectation of greater pleasure. So it might be I submit to the suffering, although we admit it's a minor amount of suffering, but it's suffering. It's not joy and pleasure. To learn how to write this program and spend the time writing it, debugging it, optimizing it, etc., because it gives me some kind of result that contributes to my overall pleasure, overall utility, something like that.
Flourishing.
Yeah. So I think you have to, I think that's how you have to calculate any instance, even of growth. I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to lift these heavy things, and it's suffering and it hurts, but it's going to make me stronger, and that makes my life, from my perspective, better in some way. Because if you don't, if you can't reckon those decisions in those terms, if that's not your calculus, then you run into these problems of consistency. And I think that's, for me, that's where that worldview, I think, starts to suffer. Because, and I think Nietzsche was honest about it. So Nietzsche starts with the same premise: whistle while you work, blah, blah, blah. But most people will say, I do what makes sense to me and what makes me feel significant and meaningful, what makes me feel, what brings me the greatest life as I judge, something like that, right? I've got 80 years, how do I make the best of them? I do what makes sense to me. But Nietzsche went, well, heck with that, right? I'm sorry, let me back up one step. Most of us say, I do what makes sense, but I don't hurt other people. Like, I love people and I'm kind and I'm charitable, and we start adding all of these sort of moral principles, and we add this moral layer on top of whistle while you work.
Right.
And Nietzsche was like, get rid of that moral nature thing. If none of it matters, if really the universe ends in a heat death and we can describe each of our lives as a complex chemical reaction, then it doesn't matter whether you were nice to people, and it doesn't matter whether you abused or took advantage of or tortured or whatever. And in fact, this is sort of the call it evolution of humanity, would be to understand that about yourself, that everyone's life can be described in terms of a chemical process or a chemical reaction that disappears and it had no purpose and it had no meaning. So why don't we remove that moral layer? We have maybe a philosophical or a theological layer on the bottom, then we put a moral layer on top. That's usually like, don't hurt people, be good, be nice, all the things that we all agree on. But I think that if your life has no meaning because the universe has no purpose, that you can't justify that moral layer except to say, those things make me feel bad or gross, or all of my moral judgments are a statement of my own preferences. Right, so I say don't torture babies. Right. I'm not saying you can't do that. I'm just saying, like, ew, I don't like that, and I wouldn't and couldn't participate in it. And all of that is to say, I think if your view of the meaning of life it can be reduced into sort of purely physical terms, I think you can't justify having a moral layer of your life, and I think most people can't live that way. I think we can say that we can, but I just don't think that I don't think it's a workable life.
Yeah. But then we come to that's like you have this feeling-based morals, which also my morals is based on feelings, which is like how society is structured. Because like society is structured around feelings. Yeah. Like because we have like different cultures, have all these different because we live in like a more like to the like how is like descriptive, prescriptive. Descriptive is like we are living in a moral relativist world. That's like how the world are working. Because like for example the difference between like when you are like treating different kind of like how you see murder in different countries. For example, like for example, self-defense is seen as a different thing, like, for example, in the United States and in Norway. For example, there you can just almost shoot, like, immediately. But here in Norway, you have have a more, like, trigger, like, you need to be more carefully. Because here we actually are prosecuting more carefully when it comes to, like, self-defense and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's, like, a difference when it comes to the difference of, like, murder. Like, here we have, like, a different opinion of, like, what murder should be like. Then you have also, for example, then you can go to, like, stuff like abortion also. Then, like, you have different opinions of, like, what is murder there. Like, for example, if you are especially evangelical in the United States, for not everybody, but many people, there's a different thing there. But here in Norway, like, we don't care, like, we don't have that, like, emotional attachment to it. We are more okay, like, we see it as more like just a medical operation.
Yeah.
And so that's, like, how, like, we are, like, living in this, like, moral, like, relativist world.
Yeah.
But then, like, but that's, like, to the part of, like, the evolution process. It's just, like, that's just how it is. And then, like, we like, if we didn't have this, like, evolutionary process where we get, like, have these feelings, because we can think abstractly, we cannot create a society. Because if we were going to go out and murder a lot of people, we cannot create society. And then we will not be, like, selecting on this mechanism for that society, and it would just be crashing down. And then, like, another point is, like, because we can also see, like, moral structures in, like, the animal kingdom. Like, of course, we also in the animal kingdom, but, like, you also can obviously see, like, different, like, behavior of animals that are clearly moral. So, like, where is, like, these things coming from also? Because, like, you have seen, like, I don't know if you have seen, like videos of, like, animals acting morally. I don't know if you've seen them.
I mean, animals do some pretty terrible
I saw, like,
stuff.
a squirrel giving.
Yeah, but, like, humans also do very terrible stuff also.
That's true. Yeah.
We've seen videos of crows making gifts for humans. We see that chimps take better care of their own children than the children of other people.
Yeah.
You have
of other chimps. I mean,
Yeah.
You have example of, like, penguins adopting, and you have examples of like, even, like, you have many of, like, cats, like, and dogs, like using their own life to, like, not rescue, I mean, like, sacrificing their own life for, like, protecting to the family, which we clearly see as, like, it's a moral act. Like, even maybe they don't think it's a moral act, but it's, like, some sort of, like, part of their genetical code, or because I am not, like, a very, like, I think, like, environment has a lot to do with how we behave morally. So I think also, like, maybe like, animals can be, like, learned to also behave morally also. If they know about it or not, I don't know. But, like, there's clearly something that's more just than humans also. If that,
So I just wonder how far we want to take that almost, because we that you're rightly to observe that different cultures have different moral values over certain issues. Right?
And another thing, it's not like I will debate if somebody, like, does something I don't like. That's like how we are, like, changing laws, because we are doing discussions and debates about, like, I feel this way, but I can, like, for example, if it's like Nazi Germany, then I will, like, debate to the Nazi about about, like, for example, to the wrongdoing of killing Jews, but by, like, for example, like, just using themselves as the same position, like you have to the for example, just use this easy example of, like, to the curtain of wall, John, if that's his name, I don't.
I can't remember.
Yeah, but it's basically, like, you just put themselves in your shoes, just, like, using their own, like, logical. I use their system of, like, how they feeling about things and asking questions about that, and then, like, if they clearly see a contradiction there, then, like, are you really sure you should be doing this then? But then, of course, it's like that's the thing, like, we are driven by emotions and fear and stuff like that. So then you get, like, stuff like the Holocaust and.
Right.
And big atrocities.
Yeah, well, that's more or less what I was going to ask, was because we have cultures, not even just in the 20th century, but even, like, down today, that have risen up with these values to do some pretty terrible things and some good things, right, in certain cultures. And so I'm just, like, the way that when I'm confronted with this question, like, when I see someone in, like, the Middle East or in Nazi Germany or wherever commit a moral atrocity, like, when I say that gassing Jews is wrong, I'm not making the same statement morally as when I say I like Coca-Cola, right? I'm not like, to me, like I am perceiving like an actual evil in the world, and I'm like, no, it's not just my opinion this is wrong. Like I'm seeing that this is wrong, and the people who think that this is morally good and right, they're wrong in the same way that if they said 2 + 2 is 5, then they're wrong.
Yeah. But also have like the other issue with like, for example, if you're like a Christian, you can say like, you can just say, God told me this, and I will act this way, and then like you can, then like you are like, if you can like logically like talk to them, then it's like you kind of like, well, how is it going? Like you cannot rationalize with irrationality.
Sure.
So then it's
that's true for everybody.
Yeah, right? no, but like you can just say, God told me this thing, and that's like I want to, for example, have like a worldview where we are like having like this properly secular worldview where like we need to be having this logical debates about, because if you like you need to be like able to be challenged. If you want to behave one way morally, then I need to be able to challenge you, like in this world.
Sure, and then I think the Christian has the responsibility to be able to explain himself to you. So, so an example I might think of. So my family were immigrants in Norway, and when we got here, we had to schedule an appointment with the police. And we had to show up at the police station and give them our documents, and they did some more stuff. Yeah. And when I got there, they said, "What? Why are you here? Show me proof of your appointment." And I could give them a piece of paper. Yeah. I said, "There's an authority that told me this is the time and place where I need to be." And they could say, "No, there isn't. I don't believe in any such authority." But then I would have some documentation in order to hopefully persuade the guard to let me. In fact, that's exactly what happened. Yeah. This was during COVID time, and there was a guard at the door who, unless I could show him the right piece of paper, wouldn't let me through. And I think that's relevantly similar to God told me to do it. So God told you to do it. Well, let's talk about that thing, because if God is real and He told you and He told you to do it, that's like the issuing authority of my appointment with the police. I say there's an authority who told me to do this. You have to respect it just like I do. So if God is real and He's given me some instruction, then that means we're all bound to the instruction that God gave me. But that's not proof necessarily for you. I think maybe it's proof enough for me. Yeah. But that's not necessarily proof enough for someone who's outside of my consciousness to believe that. And I think that's something that Christians have to be honest about and willing to deal with. And by the way, you do get kooky people who say God told me to do something that God didn't tell them to do. Yeah. And I was a pastor for several years, and people would tell me all the time, God told me to do some stupid thing that God definitely didn't tell them to do. But I think the lesson there is that humans just have we're not short. Let me say this: we're very talented at finding justification to do the things we want to do anyways.
Yeah. But also, like, I just also want to appoint like maybe 1 or 2 elephants in the room.
Yeah, sure.
For example, like how I know you of course are not following this, but like the problem of like brimstone on fire, like in hell. Like if like God like is real and you have this like brimstone, like this like very bad place according to some Christians, but I know like Jacob does not follow this, and I don't know your perspective, but if you have this like very bad scenario that you like you know what I'm thinking about, then like I don't see that as like any moral good God at all. If like just like a person that does not believe go to like hell or something, like if I behave like as a good decent person, like I'd never like maybe do like some sinful thing according to like Christians, but like it's just like I don't never actually hurt anyone. But then I go to hell for like eternity and suffer, and that I see like a big problem if you're following that worldview, but it's like a different version of like, for example, Orthodox people, they don't even think about hell even, they just think you just are gone. And then like he believes just like we are just hell, then like afterlife is just two separate of sinners. And
I don't believe in like the kind of medieval, like where you have like demons putting people in a stretcher and like tormenting. Like I think that there's a cartoonish kind of dramatized version of hell that's become like popular. It's in popular culture and it's in like
it's always the paintings. Satan's in charge and the demons are torturing people. And no.
So I believe God's in charge of hell. I believe hell's a real place, and I believe people go there forever. But I think that there's so many. Something interesting you said there. And first of all, I appreciate you bringing this up. And this is another thing that could be its whole episode in itself. But you said, as you were explaining yourself, you're like, I feel like I'm a good person and does good things, and I don't really deserve this, and like I don't understand how a moral God can put us there. I think that right there gets us back to like at bottom of like what we're talking about, of like what does it actually mean to live a meaningful life? What does it mean to live a good life? And I would say that as a Christian, what it means to be a good person, to live a good life, is defined by God and of being in relationship with God and following God. And I think that there's a question that's posed. It's called the Hitchens dilemma or whatever it is. It's Christopher Hitchens. I'm sure you're familiar with him. He said, he would ask Christians constantly, like, what's a moral thing that a Christian can do that an atheist cannot do? And the answer to that question is serve, love, and follow God. Because I would say as a Christian, that's the most moral thing possibly. I mean, you got to see it like, well, hopefully I can help you see it maybe from my point of view. I look at God
because I have just like a short tangent to this. Like, I just have a problem with this, like, all this stuff about relationship with God and like this, like, do you feel like this is the moral thing is to be like close to God and all this stuff, which is just like, just like person for me, it like doesn't make like sense. It's just hard for me to understand like that thing. Like why that is important.
So I'm going to interject real quick. We haven't heard like 2 words from Bailey. But Bailey is the only one of us who used to be an atheist and isn't anymore. So we've kind of, I don't even have a good prompt of a question for you, but I just wonder what your perspective is on the conversation so far. Because
I have thoughts. And then I really appreciate you saying that just now, Endre, because for me, when I was an atheist, and I was a really bad atheist, like you're a way better atheist than I was back in high school.
Like maybe I do something very wrong that you guys are.
No, he means like intellectually.
I was not a smart atheist. I was really dumb, but I was really convinced. But I would have heard Jake say that like the most moral thing that any person can do is serve, love, and follow God. I would hear that and I would probably laugh at him, and my ears like would make me want to vomit. And I'd say like, look how gross this thing is. Like, you guys go into a building and lift your hands to this guy who doesn't even exist. Like, look how deceived you people are. So my response to what Jake just said would be a lot more harsh than yours was. But I think that's generally the kind of just how wrong that sounds. Like when someone says, the best thing you can do is serve, love, and follow a guy in the sky. You're like, okay, who cares about a guy in the sky?
I know, for example, like you also have secular people. Like, for example, we have the tyrannical dictator of like North Korea. Like, people also, I don't know, follow, serve, love.
They worship him.
Also.
Absolutely.
And which also, like, not to be too mean, I see some similarities there mean. Also by like worshiping God also.
Oh my goodness. That's such an excellent point. And there's a lot to say, but I want to hear what
I have like a few things that I think might help to clarify what our view is in like terms that don't just make you want to vomit. Because I like the atheist ears that still reside in me somewhat. Still heard Jake say that, and I'm like, no, like say it differently because that makes me want to throw up. So I think backing up to the question, like, what is the meaning of life? As you were describing your response to that question, for me, I was hearing answers to the question, what is the meaning in life? Or where do you find meaning in life? So like I would point to my family and say, my son, my wife, like I love, and get tons of joy and tons of like good stuff happens in my emotions and everything from just having them in my life and loving and serving them. But so there are tons of different things that I can point at and say, oh yeah, that's the thing that gives me a little bit of meaning and purpose, and there I find some purpose. But I didn't ever hear from you.
No, like I think because I also like one of my meaning of life is like to have joy and stuff like that with friends
Yeah.
and family.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I think like if you like, what was the book that we talked about? The having all the stuff, blah blah blah, all these things.
We were talking about Ecclesiastes in the
Yeah.
Bible and how that relates to this. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's like just if you just have the stuff but you have no friends, then think like it would be boring because
Yeah.
you can also have stuff and have friends and share the stuff with friends also. But if you don't have nobody to share this with, then like it's just empty. It's like because I find like also to like me personally, because you can have like us in the secular world, you have different opinions, but in my world it's like, for example, if I want to go on like, I know, just a trip to just like, I know, Amsterdam or something, then like I want to go with someone to like make experience with someone that you actually can have like a story together.
Yeah.
That's like where I find like my top meaning is like actually like do something together with someone that you care about.
Yeah.
And
So it sounds like Bailey had an observation.
yeah.
I think like a way to explain the Christian claim that might make more sense to your ears is to answer the question, what is the meaning of life? So we have like this, we realize that our beings like we have a desire, and we're trying to find this thing that resolves that desire. And we can find tons of different things, but I think we don't arrive at an ultimate thing that resolves that, except for in the answer that I found called God. So I think the Christian claim would be, what is the meaning of life? And we claim that there is a God who created everything we see and us, and the meaning of life, that he, as the creator and the initiator of it all, the meaning of life, I wouldn't say it in terms of is to serve, love, and follow him, but the meaning of life is to find and live in relationship with the God who created the world and everything. You go. And if you could clarify like where you fall off on that, because I genuinely like when I try to imagine like your worldview without God, or my past worldview when I had the same worldview without God, I know that has to be answered. Like there has to be something that ultimately resolves the meaning of life, or if there isn't something there, then I'm going to find meaning in life, and I'm going to like find it to the fullest, meaning I'm like all the morals and stuff, like Cam was saying, I would throw that trash away and I would start enjoying life.
But it's just like I feel like I'm too mean when I say this, when I like use the North Korea.
Be mean. Go for it.
Because it's just like I see like as Kim Jong-un, he created like North Korea, and like people there are like you're going to like worship him, you get to the I know, you get the goods if you worship him, you get the bad if you don't. And like in this well, like if you are like assuming God is real, then I see it's like very similar. Like it's like you need to like serve me, or you don't get the goods. It's like because like you have the options either or, and there's like no like
Well, I would say, I mean, as a Christian, I think like you're getting the goods anyways. Like you're getting a lot of goods already. Like because I see, this was the other tangent I was going to go on to try and help you like understand where I'm coming from. Like seeing God would be as the source of like all the pleasures that we have in life, the things that we enjoy, the air we breathe, and the comfort, and that God would give that all to like us, even if we want to be like, no, heck with you, you don't exist, and all of that. But to go to the directly to the Kim Jong-un comparison, right? I'm already trying to learn Norwegian, guys. Like, I'm not trying to deal with that. So it depends on who the object of the worship is, right? It depends on who. So if you don't prefer to understand it in terms of like love, of like relationship, like that's totally fine. But think of it as an issue of truth. Like, what is this belief in God like true or not? And if you have and if you have a moral problem of like, well, why would I want to worship and serve this God? It depends on the object of the worship. Like, is there a way to investigate what this being's character is like? Is there a way to investigate what they've done in the world, and what do they think about me? Like, what would I get out of loving, worshiping, and serving? What I get out of worshiping Kim Jong is slavery. Sorry if you hear this.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not, but I live under a dictatorship of a guy who's brutal and clearly mentally troubled, and I just don't see that as being the logical outcome of serving the God of the Bible.
Yeah. To not go into like too many tangents either, because also like, as we have hinted to multiple times, talk about the problem of like evil in the Bible itself, or bad moral, or however you can define it. Like I see it's like very also like in Genesis, like you have like the flood, you have the killing of like the firstborns in Egypt, and you have like just the killing of a guy picking stick on a Sunday, and I just like, if this is like to the moral arbitrarily, the one that the deciding moral stuff, then it's like because often when I talk about like the moral contradiction to something, I don't talk. I talk about, okay, no, I don't remember my train of thought there, but. Just like it's just it's just, you understand my point. Hopefully.
So that's fair questions, and it's really difficult, and it's almost like it's like this. Imagine I'm a small child, and I need to have my appendix taken out of my body, because if I don't, it's going to burst and I'm going to die. And my dad says to me, Cameron, here's what we have to do. We're going to take you to a strange man you don't know, and he's going to make you unconscious. He's going to take all of your clothes off and put you on a table and cut your body open and start taking stuff out, right? And you could explain it in those terms. And you can imagine me as a child saying, this doesn't make sense, but my dad says that it's right, and I know that he's good, and I'm going to take his word for it. And those of us with a little bit more experience and wisdom you would all reassure me, right? You have to imagine I'm a little kid now, but you all would reassure me. No, Cam, your dad's doing the right thing. I know it sounds crazy. I know as a child it doesn't make any sense, but this is what will save your life, and it's not evil. It's very good. And I think that's something like that is the foundation of my response to, what about these moral things in the Bible that I don't understand? How could God drown everybody?
No, I think I got it now.
Yeah,
it's like he has like conditions in the Bible about moral action. Then he like contradicts himself by doing exactly the same. Like you're saying, like, do as what I say, not as I do, or something like that.
So again, that's fair, and we could talk. And I would be glad to spend.
Probably like we probably must spend a lot of time on this.
Well, there are excellent answers for each instance. So something like, God wouldn't let one of us drown everybody, right? If I said, God, everyone in my house is incurably wicked, so I drowned my wife and children. We would go, whoa, God probably has a rule about that. And you go, well, but he did it. And we recognize that there's a difference in authority between different actors. If you came to my house and took all of my guitars, that would be a moral crime. And if I went to my house and took all of my guitars...
What if I sold them and gave the money to helping poor people?
Oh my goodness, that's economics.
Pretty upset about that.
Yeah, still a moral crime. But if I went to my house and took all of my guitars, that's not a moral crime. So there's no contradiction when I say, no. The moral rule is we don't steal. But it looks like you're making an exception for yourself, Cam, because you're just saying when you do it, it's not stealing. And I go, well, yeah, but there's a good reason, because I'm the rightful owner. And so there's lots to say about what are God's moral principles, and how does it apply when it comes to flooding the world and killing all but a handful of all of the people. I think they're good answers to those questions. But for me, the foundation of those, even as I struggle with them, I mean, I've read the Bible, and there's stuff in there that's hard for me to understand. I don't get it. But in my experience with God, He's shown Himself true and faithful and good and just and righteous. And so I can, with the things I'm not sure about, I can trust Him in the same way that if I tell one of my daughters, no, we're going to take you to a dentist and he's going to drill holes in your teeth and that's going to make you better. And she goes, wait, what? It's going to, and you have to trust me. I know you don't get it. And I know you don't understand, but as you grow wise and you understand more and more what the world is really like, then you'll come to understand that this is the good and right decision. I can trust God in the same way, or I say there are these things that I don't understand about. Maybe they're paradoxical. Maybe they're morally difficult for me to understand. But as God reveals Himself and as faithful and good, then the ones that I don't understand are easier for me to trust Him with. And so it's not a surprise at all that somebody who doesn't know God would look at that and go, "What the heck? That makes no sense." But that's there's a lot to say about that. That's a perfectly normal and reasonable reaction to looking at things that look like moral contradictions. Like God is contradicting His own moral values. That doesn't make any sense. But as you spend time with and learn who God is and learn to see His goodness and His justice and His proven character, then you start to be able to answer the more difficult questions. And the ones that are at the top, maybe they're too difficult to satisfy my heart. My mind can at least say, but I trust God. I don't know these ones, but I know the rest. I'm so sure of the rest of the stuff. You can think of like any scientific theory, right? So you pick any scientific theory, and there are data that are outliers. So you think of any scientific theory. I know this is a terrible reduction, but you think of it as points on a graph. And they all line up except like this one and this one and this one. And what the scientists will say is, yes, but our framework explains these 1,000 data points, and it's got these 8 or 10 that it has trouble with, but we're going to keep working to be able to incorporate those. That's the same way that I approach the times when I have doubt or I don't understand what God's up to, is say I understand who He is in such a way that it makes sense of the vast majority of my experience and the scriptures and history and science and all the things that my mind deals with.
Yeah.
And there are these outliers that I can't be sure about, but as I understand my subject, namely God, as I understand my subject better, I trust that it's going to be able to incorporate the outlying data.
Yeah. And I would just make a comment to that I think that as far as like approaching it like in that logical way or that investigative way of like, well, let me see who God is like and see if that like explains maybe some of these problems I have in the Bible. These real important and difficult questions that I acknowledge, and I agree that they're difficult. I just want to say to you that like it's definitely our perspective that God is not some kind of like distant dictator, just like in His castle, who just says off with.
It's important, tyrannical, because you can be a good dictator and a bad dictator also.
What I'm trying to say is that Christianity, the truth of God's existence, truths about God's character, is something that can be investigated and studied and laid out, and just be like, okay, what is God like? What's important to God? You know, what's His moral compass, if you will? That's all stuff that can be investigated and studied. It could be studied by looking at. I would just point you, just as my friend. Not we can turn the camera off. I'd point you.
Let's leave that going.
I'd point you to the life of Jesus, because I would say, as a Christian, Jesus is God perfectly revealed. And if you really wanted to know what kind of dictator God was really like, I would say look at Jesus. And He's the perfect representation of God. And that's something that can be, and for anyone watching too, that's something that can be investigated. Like you can see like, okay, what about the 4 Gospels? Are they historical? Why should I believe they're historical? Okay, well, what about these things that says that Jesus did? I would say look at that, study that. You're going to find a much different kind of picture than you would find looking at people like Kim Jong or Stalin or Hitler or anything like that.
And we will, one day when I have read more and taken my notes, then we're going to have the moral.
This would be so good.
Because I'm reading the Bible right now and taking notes on problematic things, you can say. But that will be for another day.
Where are you at in the Bible?
And I'm still in Genesis.
Okay.
I do like very it goes like 1 week without just reading some chapters.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. It'll take you a while, but I'm super excited to talk about it when you're done.
But then also we can talk about the question, since we are going to time. I don't know if
we are kind of approaching our time.
Yes.
Are you talking about the question that you asked me earlier this week?
Yeah, like what will your worldview be like if like you just stopped like believing in God? Like what will you be like? What will like change in your life?
I'll give you. Can I give you the answer that I gave you? Because we are running short on time. I know, gosh, you had so much to say, but I will just say this, and then you can find out that they agree with me from their reactions. So I think that what I would
Wrong.
do, I think that what Jacob
wouldn't
O'Neill would do, like if I found out tomorrow that like God didn't exist, I live in a physicalist kind of universe, all completely naturalist, no God, I would do as best as I could to delude myself into thinking that what I care about is important or that what I do is important. I wouldn't just turn into like a moral monster and just start raping and pillaging.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't like become like a totally different person, but I would lie to myself and delude myself into thinking that the things that I do that will be gone in 100 years are so important. Because I just don't think, and I kind of intentionally held back because we had this conversation before and I wanted to hear what they had to say about it. But I don't think that whistling while you work is a good enough answer. Give it to you straight.
It works in Norway. Many people here are happy. And,
but that's the thing. But once you get to the bottom, like what works is not necessarily what's true, and what works is not necessarily like what's right. And I as far as like I understand it, it's kind of like what I said like 40 minutes ago. It would literally just be me. I pretend that this is easy, and that would drive me crazy. So what a great note to end this on. But here's the thing. I don't believe that life is that way. I don't believe we're whistling while we work. I believe that...
No, not me. I believe there's also more to it than just the rock.
Well, that's good. But I believe that like we care about things because they're actually meaningful, because they're objectively meaningful. And like things like friendship, things like coming on a podcast and talking about important questions like this. I don't think what we're doing right now is pretending this is meaningful. I think it actually is meaningful. So anyways, I hope you think it's meaningful too, and I hope you tune in 2 weeks to hear us talk some more about it. God bless. Thank you for watching this episode of Word First Radio. If you like the podcast, please like, share, and subscribe. If you want to learn more about Word First and how you can support the ministry spiritually and financially, check out the links in the description below. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Word First Radio, and we'll see you again next week. God bless.